This is the number 2 killer of wealth that no one talks about. For most of us, our largest expense parks right in front of us every single day, and it's not our $5 a day Starbucks habit. And if you're gonna guess taxes, that'd be a really good guess, but that's not what I'm talking about. Today's video, I'm gonna share with you what this expense is and a few simple tweaks that you can do to make sure it's not a killer for your retirement planning. Let's go for a walk and talk about this. So for most Americans, our largest expense, our largest single expense is housing. And I don't think that's going to surprise anybody, right? Housing is expensive, not just here in the United States, but I think regardless of what country that you're in. So housing is expensive whether you own or whether you rent. But our second large, and I should say, the average American household spends just under $2,000 a month for housing. And that includes their rent or their mortgage payment, insurance, things like that. So full in cost for housing. But our second largest expense is something that I think we can control. And that is transportation. The average American household spends just under $1,000 a month for transportation. And that would include your car payment, fuel, insurance, auto repairs, things like that. And this cost is much more variable, right? With housing, there's not a lot you can do about that. You can choose to live in a smaller house. You can choose to live in a different neighborhood. You can choose to rent a 2-bedroom apartment or a 1-bedroom apartment instead of a 3-bedroom apartment. But you know, most of us that have a 2-bedroom apartment, I think most of us need that 2-bedroom apartment. So that's kind of it's almost like a fixed cost, what we spend on housing. But with our car payments, I think there's a lot of variability there. So let's talk about some ways that we can save money. And be sure to stay to the end, because at the end, I'm going to talk about whether electric cars are a solution to this. Do electric cars save you money? Or ironically, do electric cars actually cost you more money? So be sure to stay to the end when I talk about this. So, you know, one of the reasons that transportation costs can be variable is because we can choose whether we buy a used car or a new car. And within a used car, we can choose whether we buy a car with 10,000 miles on it, 30,000 miles on it, 50,000 miles, or 100,000 miles. And, you know, one of the biggest costs for a new car is the depreciation. And even if you buy a really solid, you know, not flashy car at all, but even if you just buy like a Honda Civic or a Camry, according to Consumer Reports, a Camry and a Honda Civic full in cost, if you buy it new, is $8,000 to $9,000 a year. Now, if you think about it, the average American makes $1,000 a week. So $8,000 to $9,000 a year is, you know, what would that be? 16 to 18% of your gross pay. That's a lot. So, you know, that's one of the reasons that I think driving a used car is one of the least sacrificial ways that you can make changes to your life. You're still going to get from point A to point B. You can still drive a nice car, but I think you can save thousands of dollars a year. And let me give you some examples. First off, for new cars, 1/6 of all people that bought a new car have a car payment, just a car payment alone, of $1,000 a month. I think that's nuts, right? Now, if you're filthy rich and you can afford it, no problem. You know, you spend your money. And this, I shouldn't say I think that that's nuts, because some people are car people and that's what they love. And if that's what you love and that's how you want to spend your money, great. But if you're spending 12, 15, 20% of your gross pay, you know, it's really going to be hard to build up your wealth paying something like that. The other thing with new cars is, you know, recently, there's been a recent trend really since the pandemic, and that is, you know, the days of buying a new car below sticker, you know, those days are probably gone for most of us, at least for a while. You know, I remember before the pandemic, you could go to Consumer Reports and you could find out, you know, sticker price was like the highest price that you wanted to pay. And, you know, I hope I don't offend anybody, but I think in general, people were thinking, you know, only suckers pay sticker price. You want to pay below sticker price. But now it's really easy to have to pay above sticker price. So things have changed and made the math a lot worse for most people. And again, even everyday, you know, just common cars, a Honda Civic or a Camry can be pretty expensive to drive if you're buying new. But the thing is, with a used car, You know, you buy a used car with maybe a 3 to 5 year old used car with 50,000 miles on it, you've taken away a lot of the depreciation. Now, you know, there's another strategy, which is you drive an even older car. And, you know, the older you get, the more miles that you get on a car, the more important your pre-purchase inspection, the more important it is to have a good mechanic, because the last thing you want to do is end up with a headache. But, you know, I have bought cars with, you know, if you buy a car with 100,000 miles on it, between 100,000 miles and 130,000 miles, it's going to drop in price quite a bit. I mean, you can pay $15,000 for a car with 100,000 miles on it, but with 125,000 miles on it, you might be able to get that car for $6,000. So, you know, that's a big price variance for that extra 30,000 miles. And if you have a good mechanic, you know, modern day cars, I think, can go 250,000 miles. But I don't want to seem like I'm over frugal, but I just want to share. Truthfully, I am overly frugal, but I know that's not for everybody. And so I just want to share my experiences. I have bought cars with 125, 130,000 miles. And I've driven them for 25, you know, I've driven them for 2 years, put 30,000 miles on it, and basically sold them for really close to the same price that I paid. So very little depreciation on it. The other thing is it saves you on insurance. Your insurance is at least the comprehensive and the collision on your car coverage, that's based on the value of the car. So if you're driving a car that's worth $50,000, that insurance is going to cost quite a bit more than if you're buying a car that's worth $10,000. And the other thing is, the lower the purchase price of a car, the more likely you are to be able to pay cash and not have to finance that car and not have to pay interest rates. And as we all know, interest rates have gone up in the last 18 or 24 months. So it's not as inexpensive to get financed as it was in the recent past. So those are just a couple things to think about. What else here? Okay, electric cars. I promised to wrap this up with electric cars. I have some friends that drive $40,000, $50,000, $80,000 electric cars, and they brag that they don't have to go to the gas station anymore. And think about all the money that they're saving. Well, you know, just do the math. If the average person drives a car 12 to 15,000 miles a year, and if you're getting 25 miles to the gallon, I've got a Honda Odyssey, which is a minivan that gets 25 miles to the gallon. So I think a lot of vehicles can get 25 miles to the gallon. If you're driving 15,000 miles a year, you're buying 600 gallons of gas a year. And if you assume that gas is going to cost you between $3 and $4 a gallon, you know, that's $2,000 a year. So, you know, is it worth paying $50,000 to save $2,000 a year in gas? I'll let you make the decision on that. But, you know, I think people are fooling themselves if they think, you know, buying a brand new electric car or even a used electric car, they're quite expensive. There's not as many people that can work on them. The cost of maintenance is higher. Now, I don't know what the answer is. Are electric cars really better for the environment? Clearly our air is going to clean up, but I know there's other environmental issues with mining these, with mining lithium and other metals like that go into the battery. So I don't know what the answer to that is, but from an economic standpoint, saving $2,000 a year on gas, you're gonna have to drive that car many years for it to make up. And of course, electricity is not free either, for you to make up the difference there. So that's my thoughts on electric cars. I do not think that for the average person, you should buy an electric car because you want to save on the gas. Unless you're in a special situation. I understand, like cab drivers in New York City. I was just in Las Vegas on a connection, and I went into the Strip for a couple hours, the Las Vegas Strip. And the cab driver that picked me up was driving an electric car. And maybe in a situation like that, it makes sense to drive an electric car. But for the most part, I don't think it does. So again, a used car, and you know, if you've never bought a used car with 100,000 miles on it, I encourage you to give it a try, because I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. You know, most people think a used car is like 30 or 50,000 miles, and that's fine. But if you want to feel a little adventurous, if you want to follow some of Azul's advice, give it a try. Worst case is you end up selling it. So the one thing I will say is be sure to get a good mechanical inspection on it, because you don't want to have a mechanical headache on your hands. And make sure you have a good mechanic. And really, to find a good mechanic, you just want to look at Google reviews. You know, a lot of mechanics are going to get good reviews. Obviously, you want somebody that's honest. You want somebody that's going to fix the problem the first time. But one of the things I look for in reviews is, you know, this mechanic doesn't charge enough. You know, I give them more money. And in every town, there's somebody like that you can find on Google reviews. And I have had good luck with mechanics like that. And I'm happy to leave them a large tip if, you know, if their rate is less than what it should be. I once had an air conditioner fixed on my car. I'm getting into details here, but it would have been like back then $700 or $800 to fix the air conditioning, and the mechanic said, you know, the problem is it's got a $10 part internally inside of it, and rather than replace the compressor or whatever it is, I can open it up and I can replace that part for you. And so, you know, I had to pay 3 or 4 hours of labor, but it saved me hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And that's the kind of mechanic that you're looking for. So I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, give me a thumbs up. Also, you know, I talked about the #1 wealth killer, but one of the ways that we all can do better and have wealth builders as opposed to wealth killers is by having our income go up. And what are some things that you can do to improve your income? And if you're interested in that topic, check out my video here. I've got a good video that's helped a lot of people on increasing your income and what you can do there. Really, oftentimes with like a hobby business, so it can also be fun. So leave me a thumbs up. It really does help the algorithm. Leave me a comment. I love reading the comments. I try to reply to as many of them as I can. And until next time, I'm Azul, encouraging you to take full advantage of the youth of your senior years. Remember, you're only young once. Let's use our time wisely.